right, y'all, so we're getting geared up for some fall catfishing today. Fall's right around the corner. We got a lot of good fishing ahead of us. And we got to make some sinkers today. We're completely out of 2 and 3 ounce weights, and we need some other sizes as well. So we're going to show you how to make some sinkers today without spending a lot of money. And you really don't need much equipment either. You probably got most of the stuff you need laying around, so let's get started. All right, so the only things we're going to be using today, we got a propane burner, we got a cast iron pot with a lid. You don't have to have a lid, it just helps speed things up a little bit. As far as where to get your cast iron, you can find used cast iron at yard sales and flea markets, dirt cheap. I think this one came from a flea market for $5. So you're gonna need something to pour your lead with. I just took an old stainless steel ladle, just kind of bent it into the shape I wanted it to make it easier to pour with. And you're gonna need a mold of some kind. We'll talk about the molds a little bit later on, but as far as the lead we're using today, we've got some 1 pound ingots. That's just lead that's already been cleaned up and poured into a mold to make things a little easier. But what I use 90% of the time, I normally just use wheel weights. You can pick these up at your local tire shops. They'll sell them to you real cheap normally, or sometimes they'll even give them to you just to get them out of their way. Now, a lot of these aren't lead anymore. They're starting to use other materials for them, but the ones that aren't lead, they'll float to the top and they'll be easy to get rid of. So that's what I use most of the time is wheel weights. But let's get this pot fired up and we'll start melting this lead down, and then we'll talk about the rest of it. I've just got my burner sitting right on the ground. I got a couple pieces of square tube that my pot's sitting on top of. Then I got a piece of stainless here over the hose just to keep the hose from melting, because I've done that before. So we're gonna get this thing fired up. All right, so one thing I forgot to mention, I like to preheat the molds before I ever start pouring any lead in them. If you start pouring lead in them when they're cold, a lot of times the lead will actually set back up before it ever gets down through that hole, and it'll clog the hole up. But if you get them hot, you won't ever have that problem. All right, so the last video I made about how to make your own sinkers, I showed you how to make them using one of these little hot pots. These things work pretty good. You just plug them into the wall. That's kind of your pot and your ladle all in one. You just pour directly out of this into the mold. You know, they work pretty good. The only problem is they're pretty small. They do make one a little bigger than this, but if you're pouring big weights, you know, anything I'd say above 4 ounces, you're only gonna be able to pour a few weights, and you're gonna have to refill this and wait on it to melt again. So I would just rather use the propane burner, the cast iron pot, and the ladle. It just saves a ton of time. You can melt all your lead down at once and just pour as much as you want. Now, they do make the bigger pots with the handle on the side that just shoot your lead directly down into the mold. And if I was going to make sinkers all the time, I would definitely have one of them. For what I do, just pouring it a couple times a year, just to make my own sinkers, the cast iron pot and the ladle, that method, that works just fine. All right, so it's been about 10 minutes. Our lead should be melted down. Let's check it out here. Oh yeah, it's ready to go. You can see all the impurities come to the top. We'll get rid of those in a second. So the mold that we're going to be using today, I've got a few different kinds of these that makes different shapes and sizes, but this one makes 2 through 5 ounce bank sinkers. That's the main one I'm going to be using today. And I'll tell you what, these things used to be $30, $35 just a few years ago, but now I think a mold like this is $55, $65. So they're definitely not cheap anymore, but there's a lot of ways you can make your own molds. People use 2x4s and all kinds of stuff. And you want to learn more about how to make your own. A friend of mine here on YouTube got a channel called Fishing and Stuff, if you haven't heard of him. He's got tons of videos on how you can make your own sinker mold. So I'll put a link to his channel in the description. But yeah, our lead's ready to go, so we're gonna start pouring. I'll show you guys what we need to do. So anytime you're messing with melted down lead, you probably really should have a mask on. You definitely need a pair of gloves. You're better off to do this outside. Just do it on a day where you know it's not gonna rain, because if some water gets in that melted lead, it just kind of blows it all over the place. It'll get all over you. So you definitely don't want to do that. But we're going to go ahead and take the lid off this pot. You can see we got all kind of impurities that came to the top of our lead here. So I'm just going to take this ladle and I'm just going to kind of scrape all that stuff off the top. Kind of scrape the pot. Sometimes some of it will kind of stick to the sides of the pot. Most of the lead stays in the pot and you're just left with all the nasty stuff on top. All the clips off the weights and all the impurities out of the lead. When you're making sinkers this big, it doesn't have to be perfectly clean. Now if you're making bullets or something like that, you need some pretty clean lead. But for what we're doing today, just getting the majority of this stuff off the top, we should be good. All right, and I almost forgot, you always want to have some kind of eye protection on, whether it's safety glasses, sunglasses. People be yelling at me for not having them on, but anyways, we got our lead cleaned up. I got the ladle preheated, got the mold good and hot. We should be ready to pour. We'll see how it goes. But this is all there is to it. You just want to get enough lead in your ladle here to where you know you got enough to fill your mold up. And you want to pour it in kind of fast. As soon as you hit the top, you're done. I don't know if I'm gonna have enough for that one. Oh yeah, I made it. All right, so we'll let it set for just a second. It don't take long at all for them to set up. All right, so we'll open our mold up here. See, they're kind of stuck in there, so we'll just tap on the back side of it. Those will all fall out. You notice they got a little extra hanging off of them there. We'll deal with that later. We'll let them cool off for a while. And that's literally all there is to it. The only thing that'll ever slow you down, sometimes your mold will get so hot that you'll have to take a little break because it starts burning the handles off. But you can pour a ton of sinkers in just a little amount of time without spending really any money. The only thing you would really have to buy here is a mold, but you don't even have to buy one of them. Most people's got an old pot laying around and a burner, you know, so it don't take much to make your own sinkers, and you can save hundreds, if not thousands of dollars over the years. There we go again. We'll let it set for a second. There we go. Knock them out. That's it. Ready to go again. So we'll sit here and we'll pour enough sinkers to where we think we got enough. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if your pot's starting to get low on lead, but you still want to make some more sinkers, go ahead and throw your lead in on top of the lead that's already melted. That's going to make it melt a whole lot faster. It'll melt almost instantly, about as fast as you can drop it in. But if you completely dry your pot out, you're going to have to wait, 5, 10, 15 minutes, however long it takes to melt it down again. But as long as you keep dropping it into that liquid lead, it'll melt almost instantly. All right, so we got some pile of sinkers made up here. They've cooled off. There's only one thing left to do now. We got to get rid of that little extra piece hanging off the back from where we poured them. So you want to take a pair of channel locks or a pair of pliers and just grab a hold of that little extra piece and just turn the sinker and it'll fall right off. And of course, you save these, and next time you make sinkers, that's just some more lead to throw in the pot. But that's about all there is to it. Nothing complicated. So that was just a quick video on how we make our sinkers. There's really not much to it, and you can save a ton of money making your own sinkers. So hopefully that helps some of you guys out. But I want to thank you guys for watching. We got a lot of good fishing coming up this fall, so stay tuned for that. God bless y'all. We'll see you in the next one.